So first of all, let's put your cell phone away and also close your laptop. You don't need your laptop to take notes, and because I hand your fair sheet already. Okay. So it's quite important, like what I said. This is second last class. So it's week 13, next week 14, and the final exam. Okay, very important. And so here's what we're going to do today. So in the beginning, I'm going to quickly go through week 12 workshop and also week 12 hybrid exercise. Some who has already started? You did start it, right? Did you get my email about? Yes, okay. So today, if you haven't started, that's all right, because I want to explain a little bit, and there are a couple mistakes in the workshop, so I'll correct them so that you can work this week to get ready for the final. And then we're going to talk about, this week we're going to talk about consolidated fair sheet to South Pacific and Asia. Okay? Similar idea, it's just getting more complicated. Okay? And then we're going to do the final exam review. Okay? Final exam review for week 15. And then we have to talk about hybrid for this week. Then in the end, we're going to do 5% workshop. Similar with last week, the workshop will be based on the one of the fair sheet we're going to talk about in class today. So very important to listen carefully. And besides, all the fair sheets, well, not all of them. Today I'm going to talk about 4 fair sheets. And 2 of them, the 2 I handed to you, will be in the final exam. So it's very important to take notes, okay? Yeah, the 2 fair sheets I handed to you will be in the final exam.
Which ones are those?
Those 2, okay, which 2? One is Cathay Pacific Airways to Canada, from Asia to Canada. The other one is a Japan Airline, Toronto, Ottawa to Australia. So those 2 will be in the final exam, okay? So we're gonna first start with a workshop, okay? First of all, let's look at the workshop. Okay, so workshop is pretty good, and basically all of you got perfect, okay? Because you're not gonna leave it to get perfect. There are a couple of things I just want to point out, and most of the students got this. I think only 2 teams got this right in the first line. Is Vancouver to Paris, then to Bahrain to Jeddah. This one is a trick question. It's a trick question because this is not applicable. The itinerary, if your client say, I want to do Vancouver to Paris, then to Bahrain, you can't do it. Because if you fly from Vancouver, you only have the choice with 2 airlines. One is Air Canada, one is British Airways, right? Air Canada, you can only transfer from London and Frankfurt. You can't do from Paris. And the same thing, you have another choice with British Airways, but again, British Airways will not take you to Paris. So this is not applicable. Okay? So that's the trick question. But in the end, all of students got it. And so all this, you got it. Which one? Okay, it's number 12, the last question. The last question is about in case of cancellation or no-show. What is that? Refund. The important thing is I'm asking you for refund. Refund and penalty are 2 different definitions. Refund means how much I get it back. Penalty means how much I paid for the airlines. So basically, how much you get back? You use what you paid minus the penalty. That's it. So you cancel the ticket before departure, which you'll only pay for cancellation penalty, which is $200. You pay $200, you get $15.95 back, right? But number C is different. You decide to not travel at all, but didn't bother cancel, which is the definition of no-show. When there's no-show, according to the contract, there are 2 penalties. One is a no-show penalty, one is cancellation penalty. You can still get the money back. You know what? This airline is not bad. Some airlines are very, very tough. When there's no-show, it means you would get nothing, not even credit. Okay? But for this airline, they say, if you do no-show, that's all right. I just give you one extra penalty, no-show penalty, which is only $100. So in the end, you pay no-show penalty and cancellation penalty, which is 200 plus 100, so you get $14.95. Okay. So basically, all these questions are basically all these questions. In order to answer them correctly, you have to read the contract very well. Okay. So that's for the workshop. And now let's take out your hybrid exercise, please. Let's take out your hybrid exercise. And again, this one is in your final exam. Not maybe. This one is in your final exam. Okay? So hybrid exercise. I'm not going to go through the answer, but I just want to quickly, first of all, correct two things. Okay? So if you print it, number one is you are going to use 2014 calendar, which is this year's calendar. Okay, this year's calendar. In my old exercise, I believe it's 2013, isn't it? I wrote 2013, right? So make sure you use 2014 calendar, okay? And what does it say is, in the contract, it says 2012, 2013. But we assume 2013 and 14 has exactly the same seasonality date. So basically just change 12 to 13, okay? So determine the seasonality. This is very important because depending on your seasonality, the fare is different. The fare is different, okay? So here we go. I gave you several itineraries. I'm not going to go through one by one because week 14 I will go through in detail. I want to give you time to do it yourself because this is in the final exam. Different itineraries, that's it. So basically, you need to look at the itinerary and decide which seasonality you're going to use. And what decides seasonality? If you look at the rule, it actually says is outbound transatlantic sector decides seasonality. So I will use number one, for example. Calgary to Vancouver, Vancouver to Tokyo. Stopover in Tokyo, Tokyo to Hong Kong. There are 2 dates. It's a one-way trip, right? June 18 and June 23rd. Which one decides seasonality? It's Trans-Pacific one. So it's actually from Vancouver to Tokyo. So that date decides seasonality, which is June 18th. Then you look at the seasonality chart, see which season it is. It's actually shoulder season. Then you look at the fare accordingly, okay? When you look at the fare, you have to think about seasonality, stopover charge, and weekend charge as well, okay? Because they're also charges. So very important, you have the calendar, then you look for the date, seasonality, and are they weekday or weekend, okay? Is there any stopover charge? So this all written in the rule, okay? So once again, next week, I will go through the answers. But if you don't do it yourself, when I go through answers, it doesn't make any sense. And in the final exam, you're gonna have no clue. I'm gonna talk about final exam later. And if you don't do this, very big chance you're gonna get 0 in the final exam because you have no clue, okay? So here we go. This is a workshop. And also, the second page, make sure you change the date to 2014, okay? I think mine said 2015, is that right? Yeah, so change it to 2014 because otherwise your answer will be different with mine. Okay? So that's week 12 hybrid, okay? Okay, so now we're gonna start today's class. Okay, like what I said, today we have about 4 fare sheets, 4 contracts we're going to talk about. The destinations will be Asia and Australia, South Pacific. Because last week we talked about Europe and Middle East, right? Okay. So when we find this week is getting more complicated, because first of all, the destinations we're not very familiar with. It's not like Europe and Middle East, we're not very familiar either. Okay? And the fare sheet is a little bit more complicated. So let's take this out. And this one I didn't give to you, but it's all on Blackboard because it's quite a simple one, so I didn't print it for you. This one. Very quickly go through this one. Okay, this is the easiest one. Canada to Australia with Air Canada. So this one applies to your clients come to see you. They want to go to Australia, and from anywhere in Canada. Then you can use this fare. Again, remember last class I talked about there are two ways we can earn money. One is by what? Percentage commission, right? The other one is by markup plus net. Percentage times $D, published fare. Okay? There are 2 ways we can earn money. And by looking at this fare sheet, which way do we earn? Number 1, right? Because it gives you what? 17% of published fare. Okay? So when you look at this type of fare sheet contract, you'll find it's very easy one. Because you don't have to do any calculation. All you need to do is what? Look at the contract. Which booking class I need to book. Then you book accordingly. $D, you get how much percentage. Okay? So what class of service are you allowed to book? This one is quite generous because look at this. You're actually allowed to book any of this class of service and you can get what percentage? 17%. 17% is quite high. It's quite high, okay? 17% of commission. Because remember in CRS, when we book Porter, Air Canada, and WestJet, what is the percentage? 4 and 5, okay? It's quite low. And this one is 17%. Another thing, remember, this one goes to where? Australia. It's expensive to fly to Australia. So the base fare is already quite high. The higher the base fare, the higher what you get, commission. Because you are basing on what? Percentage, right? So the more expensive the ticket is, the more you're going to get. So this is quite profitable for us. So very quickly, I just want to see anything special. Fare basic code, nothing special. So fare application, this one you can use for one-way, round trip, open jaw. This is great. And also, does it mention single open jaw? It doesn't mention, right? When it doesn't mention single open jaw, what does it mean? You can use for single open jaw and double open jaw. So basically, can you do Ottawa to Melbourne and Melbourne, Sydney back to Toronto? You can, right? It doesn't say you can't. And also you can do one way. Because the reason why you can easily do this is because it's percentage with published fare. All you need to do is sell whatever ticket you need to sell, and you get percentage. And this one is, I love this kind of fare sheet. Because what? You don't have to do complicated itinerary. Just book it, and you get commission, right? So, and this has a ticking deadline, so that's easy. And I'll just see if there's anything unique. And nothing. Okay, so for this one, you will find AC as per published fare, which means $V. Whatever the rule, you follow $V, right? Because you're gonna book from Apollo anyway. You book it, you $V, you store the fare, you end up in R, you queue to your agent, to the consolidator, right? So you will find the rule anyway. And here I want to say the discount. The discount here is a little bit different. child is 75, infant is 75. Applied discount after 17% is deducted. What does this mean? What does this sentence mean? Let's see, adult is $1,000. Okay? So how much is a child? 750, right? But for this one, what actually say applied discount after 17% is deducted. So this one's 1,000, right? But after 17% deduct is what? It's 17%. That's 1,170. So it's 830, right? So this one is actually adult fare. And how much is child? It's 75% times 830. And how much is an infant? 10% times 830. Okay? That's how it works. Okay. And again, combination. This combination is very similar to others. What does combination mean? Do you have to do outbound and inbound exactly the same? You don't. What you do is you use half of the outbound and half of the inbound, add them together. So outbound, inbound don't have to be the same. And half, okay? And let's see, is there any others? Okay, here what I want to point out, there's a PTA. There's one student in the other class asked me what is PTA. So let's write it down. Okay, write it on any of the fare sheets or your notes. Okay? And PTA actually stands for prepaid ticket advice. Prepaid ticket advice. Okay? PTA. What does PTA mean is, you see here it says not permitted. PTA it was used a lot before electronic ticketing was introduced. What does it mean is, for example, I'm here in Canada and my mom is in China, wants to come here visit me. But I want to pay for the ticket, pay for her ticket. But before it's electronic ticket, is I have to pay for it here, right? So I do the prepaid ticket. I use my agent here to prepay the ticket. And when my mom gets on the airplane in China, she's gonna get there, print the ticket there. Because there's no electronic ticket, right? Everything has to be printed. So that's prepaid ticket advice. But nowadays, because of the electronic ticket, it doesn't really matter. Anybody can pay the ticket. All you need to do, you even have to print a ticket. You don't. When do you travel? What do you need? Cell phone, or you just need your passport, right? When you get to the airport, all they ask, what do they ask? Show me your passport. And then they can pull out your file. You don't even need to print anything, right? So that's the reason why nowadays, very, very rarely you see this PTA, okay? But when it happens to some places, they cannot issue electronic ticket, which is very, very rare, okay? So here we go. And that's all we're going to talk about for this one. And again, it's a percentage commission based, okay? So this one, actually, most people like this one, okay? Because we all know how to book the ticket. We do $D. We check availability, we book the ticket, ask me to book L, I book L, and in the end, $B, T equal $B, I send it to the consolidator, I get my 70%. Okay, easy. I don't have to do like last time, like Gulf Air, doing all the calculations. Okay, so for this one, I probably will only charge my client $50 service fee. Okay, I'm not going to charge them a lot. Okay. So that's for the first one. So in this one, we talk about the original from where? Where does it apply? From Canada and to where? Only to Australia, right? And commission is percentage or dollar amount, markup. it is percentage. Okay. So terms and conditions, we'll talk about this one. And oh, you haven't learned Australia. Has anybody heard about this place? What is it called?
Ayers Rock.
Yeah, they also call it Uluru as well, Ayers Rock, right? It's a saint place for the Aboriginals in Australia. And like a tourist, what they do is actually they have the activity you can climb up. But for the local Aboriginals, it's kind of they don't suggest you to do because it's kind of against their religion belief. But anyways, most people when they go to Australia, they want to go there, Uluru. Right? So that's number one, easy one. Now, number two, again, it's not a hard one, it's an easy one too. So this one, I don't believe I gave it to you because it's a simple one. Maybe I gave it to you. Cathay Pacific, South Pacific. Cathay Pacific, South Pacific. Okay, so this one, I did not print it for you because that's an easy one. So this one is only one page. Again, okay, so this one applies to Cathay Pacific Airway. So whenever you look at this one, you know where do they have to make connection? Where do they have to make connection? Cathay Pacific Airway. What is a hub? Hong Kong. So no matter what, you have to make connection in Hong Kong, right? Okay. So let's see, where do they start? This one only applies to which part of Canada? Only Western Canada. So it does not apply to Ottawa, Toronto, or Montreal. It's only Western part of Canada. And they want to where? South Pacific, South Africa. So it's quite a big region, okay? And if your clients want to go to Johannesburg, you can use this one as well. And CX/KA. What is KA? CX was the known as Cathay Pacific, right? KA is which airline? It's like an Air Canada and an Air Canada Jazz. This one is Cathay Pacific and Dragonair. Dragonair, okay? So KA is a code for Dragonair. Dragonair is actually a subsidiary of Cathay Pacific, operates more local flights. So this one is basically you travel from Western Canada to South Pacific or South Africa with Cathay Pacific and Dragonair combination. And in the end, there's important is a free side trip. What is free side trip? Did we talk about side trip? We did, right? Remember the Gulf Air? We talk about when you are in Bahrain, you can do Dubai, you can do Afghanistan somewhere, right? So this one side trip, but that side trip, does it cost money for the Gulf Air side trip? It costs quite a lot, right? Like 350, 600. But for this one, actually, it's a free side trip. And again, this side trip has to be from where? Where do you do the side trip? From hub, which is Hong Kong, right? So it makes sense. When you fly into Hong Kong, then you can do a side trip from Hong Kong. Let's say to Taipei. Then you can do Hong Kong to Taipei and coming back Taipei to Hong Kong. This is a side trip. Make sense? Okay. And a region, so like what I said, is Western Canada, so all these cities apply. And destination, there are two regions. One is South Pacific, which is Australia and New Zealand as well. Okay? And South Africa, like these four cities, Johannesburg and Cape Town. And that's where does it apply? Quite a big region. Okay? And the fare basis code and Cathay Pacific published round trip economy fare, there are this one. What does this mean? This actually means how many fare basis code can you book? You actually can book 1, 2, 3, 4. V class, L class, M class, and K class. And their fare basis code is VE6M, LE6M, ME6M, and KE6M. It just make it shorter. And then in particular, this one are the 1 year. You see the difference? The difference is when it's a 6 months validity, there are 4 booking codes. When there's a 1 year validity, there are this booking code, fair basis code. Okay? And this one we don't talk about it. And valid departure, this one tells you when can you use this contract, during which period. And again, the reason why I say this one is easy one, again, is there which type of, how do you earn the money? Again, it's top one, right? By commission. Whenever it's commission, it's easy. You book accordingly, then you get the commission, 7%. Everybody can get how does it work? Okay. This is not as generous as which airline? The Air Canada one, right? Only 7%. So let's look at the free side trip, okay? So let's see where can we go, free side trip. This is pretty generous because on your way to Australia, it's quite far. Since you already go that far, may as well visit another place, right? So where do they allow you free side trip because you don't have to pay anything. Basically, Hong Kong to Taipei, Taipei to Hong Kong, that sector round trip is free. So which are the following cities Cathay Pacific and Dragon Air operate? Bangkok, BKK, and I will just tell you the familiar ones. Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Manila. This one is Cebu. Cebu, anybody heard of it? Cebu, right? And Taipei, and this one is in China, this one's Beijing and Shanghai, and some other cities in China. So quite big region, you can do that free side trip, okay? Because from Hong Kong to Beijing, it's quite far. It's about a 4-hour flight. Okay, so it's quite nice to have this one. And then they talk about what are allowed. And the last one I want to point out is open jaw permitted on free side trip. Can anybody explain to me what does it mean? Open jaw permitted on free side trip. What is a typical side trip? Typical side trip is the one I showed you. Hong Kong to Taipei, Taipei back to Hong Kong, right? This is what? Perfect round trip, right? So give me one example of
Hong Kong, Taipei, then drive to Kuala Lumpur back to.
That's right, that's exactly. And this one is actually, I strongly recommend my clients to do. Because what? So this way, how many countries you visit now? Rather than 2, it's 3. Because especially, this one is very popular. I give you a itinerary, right? Very popular for this. You travel from Hong Kong to Bangkok, then Singapore back to Hong Kong. Because from Bangkok to Singapore, you can travel by train even, okay? Another popular one is Hong Kong to Beijing and Shanghai back to Hong Kong. Because what? You visit Beijing and Shanghai, these are 2 major cities in China. And from Beijing to Shanghai, you can buy high-speed train, flying in by yourself. And this open segment is responsible by yourself, right? So they only pay Hong Kong to Beijing and Shanghai to Hong Kong. But still, it's much better than Hong Kong to Beijing, Beijing to Hong Kong round trip. Don't you think so? I just think it's much better because you give your clients another destination to visit. So I like this one a lot, okay? So, and because our job to be a good travel counselor, okay, is to design the best itinerary. And my philosophy is that I always try to design it's not just that I give them what my clients want. I always give them what? The better ones. Because we are professionals, they are not. They don't know they can get this open jaw side trip. They don't even know they can get side trip. But I know, so I can give them better suggestion, right? So that's this one. And terms and conditions. Terms and conditions, I'm not going to go in detail because they are quite easy to understand. For example, number 4, all international flights must be on Cathay Pacific operated flights. what does this mean is because sometimes Cathay Pacific are doing code share with other airlines, okay? But they, in order to get this one, they want you to fly actually Cathay Pacific flight operated by Cathay. Because the reason is that one is a Cathay Pacific flight, but operated by other airline, they don't get as much money as if it's their operated. So that's what they insist on, has to be international one, has to be Cathay Pacific operated. Okay, and here, this one I want to point out, travel on Air Canada, booked in V class for economy, WestJet, and book accordingly. This one tells you because, let's see, do you think there's non-stop flight from Victoria to Hong Kong with Cathay Pacific? There's no way, okay? So Cathay Pacific only flies into 2 cities in Canada. Which 2? Toronto and Vancouver. So any of these West Coast cities, in order to get on the Cathay Pacific, you have to fly to the hub, which is where? Vancouver, right? So how do you fly from these cities, West Coast to Vancouver? You have to either fly with whom? Air Canada or WestJet, okay? Then it tells you, if you fly with them, what are the booking code? Okay, so that's what it talks about. And the number 10, open job permitted to the origin and destination within this agreement only. So perfect, which means what? You can do open job. And does it say single open job? It doesn't. So you technically you can do what? Like the example I gave to you. You can do Vancouver to Sydney, coming back from Auckland back to where? Calgary. Right? You can do that. And again, do I care about the net? I don't care. I book accordingly, I get 7%. Love that one. Okay. And what else? They are talking about changes, right? Inbound change is free. That's nice. So again, this one is not hard, right? For the reason why I introduced one is because I want to tell you about side trip and about the free side trip. Okay. So that's fare number 2. Number 3. This one is the Japan Airline to Australia. So you do have I gave you this sheet. So now let's take them out. We write notes on this one. Again, this one is in your final exam. Okay? So I'll go through them in detail because in the final exam, you're going to be given this fare sheet and lots of questions. So you're going to be able to answer this one depending on this fare sheet. Okay, so this one is Japan Airlines. So first of all, if you want to fly with Japan Airlines, where do you have to make connection? What is our hub for Japan Airlines? Has to be Tokyo, right? Tokyo, okay? Tokyo has 2 airports, Narita and Haneda. Depending on which one they use, they can use any of them. So, but you need to know, when you fly with Japan Airlines, everything, all the itinerary has to go through Tokyo, right? So that's good. And where does this contract apply to? It's actually quite limited. It only applies to 2 destinations, 2 regions. Okay, one is Toronto, one is Ottawa, which is perfect. We're in Ottawa, so we can use this one, right? So Ottawa and Toronto. And where does it apply to? Where if your clients want to go to only Australia, okay? So if your client wants to go to Sydney, wants to go to Brisbane, wants to go to Perth, you can definitely use this one. And Here we go. So the reference, I want you to, this one, WD means weekend round trip. WD, weekend round trip, and weekday. WE is weekend round trip. Okay? It will make a difference. So here we go. Number one is from Toronto to Australia. So it's not from Ottawa. The price is from Toronto to Australia. This one. And first of all, it tells you the seasonality. This is important. And I want you to write a note right here. When it's seasonality, it has to be, what decides seasonality again? Which segment decides seasonality? Has to be
First international, or first overseas. Second.
first overseas. It will be correct for this case. First overseas is, but we use exact word. It has to be outbound trans-Pacific. Outbound trans-Pacific. Okay, so this one, what decides that? It has to be outbound trans-Pacific segment. Outbound trans-Pacific segment. Okay, so that's the seasonality. Okay, so this one is June 2012. So when you are doing this exercise, you are going to use which year's calendar? 2012's calendar. 2012's calendar. Okay, so they have a low season, shoulder season, and a high season. Okay, very important. I cannot emphasize important. You must analyze the itinerary. See which one is a trans-Pacific one. You have to look at the segment crossing the Pacific Ocean, okay? Not necessarily the first segment. So destination, this is where you're going. So if you go to Sydney, minimum is 7 days and maximum 1 year, K class, that's good. And here guys, this is a weekday fare, okay? Very important, it's a weekday fare. If you are traveling on weekend, you must add some price, some surcharge. Okay, this price only weekday fare, because it makes sense. The airlines always want to give you the lowest one, right? And if you only travel on the weekend or whatever high season, you have to surcharge. So here you have a low, shoulder, and high. So because depending on season, the price is different, right? So you have to. My suggestion is when you are doing this kind of exercise, always use another paper because it is small printing. It's very easy to look at this up, you look at this, then it's wrong. So what you do, use a piece of paper like this, so you won't make mistake. Or get yourself a ruler, okay? Then it won't make mistake either, so it'll be easier for you. And so if you travel on low season, if you travel from Toronto to Sydney, how much is it? $14.30. But if you're traveling from Ottawa to Sydney, it's actually $14.90, which is more. It makes more sense because sometimes you probably need to add another segment between Ottawa and Toronto, right? So most of the time, it costs less to travel out of Toronto rather than Ottawa. So that's low season. Then shoulder season is $200 more. High season is $300 more. Same thing applies for this one. So that's not hard. Again, make sure you highlight this weekday. That only applies to if your travel date is on weekday. That's to Sydney. Now next one is we are traveling to Brisbane. Okay? Then Brisbane, everything else the same. Weekday, low, shoulder, high. Then from Toronto, to Ottawa, then you will find which one is more expensive. Compare with Sydney. Traveling to Brisbane is actually what? More expensive. It's how much more expensive? It's about 100, 110, 120, something like a 100 range, right? Okay? So again, why it's more expensive to travel to Brisbane? Probably because what?
Less.
You have to, because what?
Less flights?
Yes, because actual flight. It's like you're traveling from Ottawa. You might have to traveling to Sydney first, then add another segment from Sydney to Brisbane. That might be the reason. Okay, so it's more expensive. And again, depending on seasonality, low, shoulder, and hot. Okay. So this is a general idea how much it is. Now we are going to look at the terms and conditions. Terms and conditions. Okay. So first of all, it's too small. Okay, so number one is a reservation. Reservation, this one is when you make reservation to Australia, here are the rules. Here are the rules. So the bold one, reservation must be confirmed. This is general practice. Before you issue the ticket, all the dates have to be confirmed and no open return. What does it mean? You can't say, I don't know when I'm coming back. Leave it open. You can't. This one, everything has to be confirmed, which means give me the date. If you're not sure, give me a temporary date. I issue the ticket, and you can what? Change it. But you can't say open return. And again, this one talks about when do you have to book the ticket and issue the ticket, depending on your travel date. So this one in detail. Okay? And seasonality, let's highlight this one. Remember I asked you to add a note. Actually in the rule it tells you outbound trans-Pacific sector determines the next seasonality for the entire trip. Has nothing to do with inbound. Has nothing to do with inbound. It's outbound trans-Pacific sector. Okay. Okay, and Japan domestic. Remember, this is a Japan airline flight. Okay, Japan airline flight. So allow 5% with no commission cap on YH, YK, YL. Yokoso Japan, welcome to Japan Fair. So what does this mean is that if you have another trip in Japan, like a side trip, then you can sell it. You get 5% commission on it, no cap. If it's $1,000 ticket, you get $50. Okay, that's one. And this one, bulk ticketing, we don't worry about it. E-ticketing, we'll talk about it. And here, booking class. Let's look at this one. Booking class. Booking class, you see the carrier. Depending on which carrier you're booking with, they have different booking codes. So if you travel with a Japan Airline or Japan Airline Star Transporter or American Airline Qantas flight, and they are K class, whereas Air Canada is W class. And some students ask me, why you are booking Japan Airline flight, why do you have all these other airlines? Why? Why do you have other airlines? Alliances. That's right, code share alliances or partners. Because think about it, do you think Japan Airline will fly into Ottawa? There's no way Japan Airline will fly into Ottawa. So in order to catch Japan Airline flight, we have to travel from Ottawa with Air Canada or American Airline to Japan Airlines to hub. For example, Chicago has to be Ottawa to Chicago with American Airline or Ottawa to Chicago with Air Canada. Okay, so that's really why. And then I'm asking you why there's Qantas flight. Why Qantas is involved? Why Qantas is involved? It's Japan Airlines flight. Yes?
Because you'd have to fly from Sydney to Brisbane.
That's right, because you have to fly between Sydney and Brisbane. Then Japan Airline will not operate. It has to be helping with Qantas. And if you book that one, you have to book what class? K class. Make sense? So that's what it means. And 1 way, not permitted, so you have to come back. And the day of the week, so this is important. So we know those prices are weekday price. So when we talk about weekday, what days are weekday? These are the definition. Midweek is weekday, right? Trans-Pacific sector, again, I want you to highlight. Trans-Pacific sector. What decides weekend? It's not the date you start the journey. They don't care when do you start the journey. Like if you travel from Ottawa to Chicago, doesn't matter. The thing matters about weekday weekend is the Trans-Pacific sector. Same thing with seasonality. Okay? So if your flight between Chicago to Tokyo is on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then you use a fare on the top. That's weekday fare, right? But if your Chicago to Tokyo flight is on Friday and Saturday, then there will be what? Okay, that's the next one. Weekend surcharge, $30 per one way. Okay? So if you're outbound, it's a weekend, $30 more. And again, this day of the week, not just about outbound. Inbound counts as well. Inbound counts as well. So if your outbound is weekend, $30 more. Inbound is weekend as well, another $30. Okay? But if your outbound is weekday, inbound is weekend, you only charge how much? 30. Okay? So this one you must look at both outbound and inbound days. Okay? So that's weekend. And this one, don't care. Validity, we talk about 7 and 1 year. When I say don't care, let's cross it out. So you don't study this one. You don't study. Only study the one I highlight. Because those are the terms and conditions you need to use to find out the fare for your itinerary. Okay? Routing. This is important because, like what I said, there's no way Japan Airlines operates from Ottawa all the way to Brisbane. Now, we're going to look, what are the possible routing? So here are the two options. Toronto to where? Chicago or New York. Why the Chicago or New York? Because what? They are Japan Airlines hub, right? So you travel from Toronto, if you're departing from Toronto, you see, Toronto to Ottawa. So if your flight's from Toronto, then they can travel any of these four to Chicago or New York. What does JL star mean? Japan Airlines code share. Japan Airlines code share, which means your flight number is Japan Airlines flight number, but it's operated by other airlines. Then you travel to these two, and from Chicago or New York, only on Japan Airlines to Tokyo. No choice. Because it's Japan Airlines flight, you'll have to travel to Tokyo. Narita. And then from Tokyo to Sydney with Japan Airlines as well. You see, VV, vice versa, which means inbound, the same routing. But if your clients are saying, I'm not just going to Sydney, I'm going to Brisbane, then they have to jump on which airline Qantas flight from Sydney to Brisbane. Make sense? So this is an itinerary. That's from Toronto. When you travel from Ottawa, then it's a little bit different. The same thing, go Ottawa to Chicago, and when you travel Ottawa, do you have New York option? You don't. You have to use Chicago as a connecting point. That's the only difference between Toronto and Ottawa. And after Chicago, everything is the same as Toronto. Makes sense, this routing. Make sense? Okay. And Toronto, Ottawa to Chicago on this flight, and AA operated Japan Airlines flight on Trans-Pacific are not permitted. What does this mean? AA operated Japan Airlines flight on Trans-Pacific sector are not permitted. That's right. It has to be Japan Airlines airplane operating between Chicago or New York to Tokyo. Remember, I explained to you why. It's because when it's code share and the airline really operated, they get different amount of money. Okay? So because it's a Japan Airlines flight fare, they want to make sure the longest segment has to be operated by my airline, not my partner, not my code share airline. Okay? I want to get the most of the money. So I want to make sure this one is operated by me, not by American Airlines. Make sense? Okay. And Japan Airlines Qantas code share flight, this one talking about Qantas operated flight. That's good. This one is clear. Next one, stopover. This is very important because if you don't know this one, for when you look at the price itinerary, you have no idea how to charge. One free stopover in Chicago and New York. So basically, if your clients say, I want to visit Central Park, no problem. This is actually a good opportunity for them to travel to New York. Because think about it, if you just buy a round trip ticket from Ottawa to New York, it's not cheap, right? It's not cheap. So this way, I may as well take advantage of this free stopover on my way to Australia. I spend maybe 2 days, even 2 days in New York. Because it's free anyway, why don't I? Right? And go there, jump on the metro or whatever, and then stay in the cheap hotel. All you need to pay is probably $100 for the 2 nights hotel, cheap hotel. And then you visit New York. Why not, right? I would definitely suggest for my clients, not as penny more. So here we go. And plus additional 2 stopovers at Canadian $100 each with 1 in each direction is permitted. This is so long. Okay. This is itinerary, right? Okay. So each direction means outbound and inbound, 1 of each. You cannot do outbound 2 stopovers. Make sense? So for example, let's take Ottawa for example. For this itinerary, can I make stopover in Chicago? Outbound, yes, no problem. Free, right? Can I stop over in Tokyo? I really want to see Kyoto. Can I?
For $100.
Yes, you can, but for $100, not free, right? Can I? Yes, I can, but for a fee, $100, no problem. Okay. And can I make stopover in Sydney as well? On my way to Brisbane. Can you?
No, that's true.
I've already stopped over in Chicago. I've already stopped over in Tokyo. Can I stop over in Sydney?
No.
No. Yes?
Let's say 2 paid stopovers plus additional 2 paid stopovers.
Yeah, that's a good question, but
One
read
each
again in each direction.
Sorry.
So that's right, you're right. You cannot stop over in Sydney as well. But what if your client say, I really want to see Sydney Opera House? Then what do you suggest them?
On the way back.
Right, you just do on the way back, okay? Because outbound, I'm only allowed 1 free, 1 paid. But you know what? I still have 1 allowance for inbound, right? So you know what? It's so much trip on the outbound anyway. So you may actually want to break them into outbound and inbound, right? So tell them inbound stopover in Sydney. Make sense? Okay. So this way, look how many places I traveled. Final destination Brisbane, 1. And Chicago, New York, let's say Chicago, and Tokyo, and Sydney. So 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Rather than the boring Ottawa to Brisbane round trip. This way, you visited 4 places. How much more you paid?
200.
You only paid $200 more, and you visit 4 places. That's the reason why we know the rule. That's the reason why we read this. Okay, it makes a huge difference of the traveler, your client's experience, doesn't it? Okay. So here we go, and Software charge must be arranged before blah blah blah, that's fine. Non-refundable. And open job. Open job at both origin and destination are permitted. So does it say single open job? Does not say, right? So basically you can do single open job. Can you do double open job? Absolutely. I can do Ottawa to Sydney, coming back Brisbane to Toronto. Can I? Yes. But when you do that, again, combinability. It means you have to do half and half. Okay? No worry, cross this out. This one talks about Southeast Asia. We don't go Southeast Asia process. So, but whenever it's combinability, remember we talked about outbound and inbound. You just use what? Half of the outbound, half of the inbound round trip, you get your price. Okay? Open return, no, we talk about rerouting. Don't worry about it. Next page. I spend a lot of time on this one. There's reason, because in the final exam, it is there, okay? So date change, wow, this one is complicated, okay? I'm not gonna go in detail, because this one is basically, you have to read very carefully depending on your own scenario. Does your client change outbound or inbound? If they change outbound, look number 1. If they change inbound, look number 2. Okay? If they change outbound, when are they going to change the outbound? Then there's a 1, 2, 3 ABC scenario. So you just have to what? Look for which one applies to my scenario and apply accordingly. Make sense? Okay? For example, I'll just say, let's use inbound, for example, okay? So, for example, if you want to change inbound, if there's no net fare difference or changing from weekend to midweek, rebooking of return is permitted at no charge. What does this mean? Do we have to pay anything? You don't. As long as what? The fare does not change. It can be. For example, your original one is from Sydney back to Ottawa, right? Now you say, I don't want to come back from Sydney, I want to come back from Brisbane. Then, do you have to pay anything? This time you have to do, because fare is different now, okay? But if you still travel from Sydney back to Ottawa, then at least there's no fare difference. But again, it might be your original inbound date is on Wednesday, which is weekday. But you say, oh, I want to change to Friday. Then Friday has turned into what? Weekend. Then you still have to pay difference. How much is the difference? Weekday and weekend. $30, isn't it? Is it 30 bucks? I remember it's 30 bucks, the first page. Okay? So basically, the change fee is free, but you have to pay 30 bucks of difference. So that's what I'm talking about. Make sense? Okay? Again, I don't go in detail. Then cancellation. For cancellation, this one is talking about if the ticket is not used at all. I find this airline, 25%. It's pretty tough. 20% of the fare is pretty. If the ticket is $2,000 and you cost $500 to cancel the ticket. But it's partially used or no show. Guys, look at this. No show, which means fully non-refundable. You don't get any back. Okay? And I like this one. Guys, look at this, No refund for date change from weekend to weekday. Airlines are really, really not stupid. Seriously. Remember we talked about change. If you want to change from weekday to weekend, well, guess what they're going to do? They charge you difference. But for some reason you paid for the weekend and now you change to weekday, good luck, you get any money back. No, too bad, so sad. You paid a higher one, now getting lower, not my problem. Okay? So always, the rules are always for their own benefit, for the airline's benefit, right? And that's it. Peak season surcharge. Okay, this one. Don't worry about this. Okay. PDA, we talked about it. Discount, same thing. Uncounted minor, not permitted. Insurance surcharge is $320 US. And the credit payment processed out, we don't care about that. Okay. And mileage upgrade, don't care. So that's it. That's basic idea for this itinerary. Make sense? Okay. So now let's take 10 minutes break. 10 minutes break. This is too much. Okay, 10 minutes break. We'll come back.